Vera pursed her lips, letting her eyes trail over him. "Nice knife, Sero." She waited him out. He raised an eyebrow, his eyes glinting with a keen curiosity at whatever her next move might involve. "Looks good against your throat." He stilled for a moment, his strange pupils widening, and then he inclined his head, the hint of a smile quickly smothered. "You're round." He absolutely purred it. "I'll set your portion of eggs aside in case you'd rather eat later," Vera said under her breath, tallying up the point on automatic before handing him the tea. Beneath the quickly recovered sarcasm, something like surprised gratitude. "My, thanks." She walked back briskly. After a few moments, the Dunmer trailed after, but, predictably, once at the campfire, he set his food on the ground at his feet, once Vera offered it and didn't touch it. He had donned his shirt, at least, and he settled down with his tea with an expression of grim forbearance. "So less." Unnar managed through a huge mouthful of eggs, groaning appreciatively. His eyes, a tawny yellow in the morning sun, squinted with pleasure, like a cat's. Compared to the Dunmer's fading but still visible injuries, the Nord seemed almost obscenely unscathed. "Smart and resourceful young woman that you are, you must have realized that I might not have been." He swallowed some tea, draining half of his mug in one gulp, despite the scalding temperature. "Entirely forthcoming was my intentions regarding those forsworn in the particular piece of property I set out to acquire." Vera occupied herself with shoveling her share of the omelet into her mouth, declining to respond. Based on Sero's offered commentary earlier, Unnar changing the terms was to be expected. "How do you feel about making, say, an extra 200? "No." Unnar stared in such comical befuddlement that Vera almost snorted. Instead, she swallowed the eggs and poured some tea into her salvaged wooden cup. Even Sero looked up sharply. His eyes, the exact same shade as the rising sun's glare, narrowed in startlement. "What do you mean, no?" the Nord inquired, as if the meaning of that particular linguistic feature was entirely unknown to him. Vera fished around in her pocket, extracted the wedding amulet, and tossed it into the Nord's lap. "No, as in we're done." She took a sip of tea. Her little breakfast-gathering expedition had afforded her the time to clear her head. A much-needed exercise. Sobering. She should have listened to her initial instincts. Unnar had been a walking disaster from the start. If antagonizing Vorstag and drawing Ouroboros' attention to her, and, by extension, to Bathala and Muri wasn't damaging enough, there was also the slippery way he spoke, his constant semantic adjustments, his insane ideas where the line between jest and coercion blurred. And whatever deal he had with Sero, it wasn't good either. And then there was the problem of the Dunmer himself, bad enough that she could barely look at him without ogling. Funny how one's perception adjusted with familiarity. There was now that telltale little tightening in the pit of her stomach every time her peripheral vision caught his movements. Well, that, and the memory of his palm rubbing precariously intimate circles over her thigh, and his hand fisting in her hair, and his raspy purr in her ear like a constant maddening itch she couldn't reach. Not the end of the world in and of itself, nothing that her fingers couldn't take care of when she had some privacy, and the overdue for a lover thing was going to need addressing at some point regardless, preferably with someone useful, and, most importantly, reasonably safe. But the combination of intrigued and amorphously, irritably worried about whatever mess the Dunmer was in, now that was a dangerous mixture. Never start a game you can't win. She'd get the rest of the coin she was owed, and that was it. She'd talk to Bothela about that mysterious contact too, and see if the bribe could be lowered that way. And speaking of Bothela, next time the old woman found herself in the mood to dispense advice as to what not to do, Vera would keep her trap shut instead of blustering about how she would manage. Now, lass, let's not get hasty. Unnar turned on the affable bear charm and cranked it up to 100. "Here, are you still hungry? Have some more eggs." More tea, yes? You have to excuse my manners. We haven't had the pleasure of traveling with the fairer sex in a while, Sero and I. We're a bit rusty. Vera waved away the offered eggs. I don't give a shit about your manners, Dunmer. I'll take you too to Carthwaston. It's close, and I'm headed that way regardless. From there, we should be able to hitch a ride back to Markarth, and once we're there, you'll pay me what you owe me. And then you can go wherever the fuck you're headed next, and our business will be concluded. The Nord's expression went momentarily flinty, before he smoothed it out to his usual jocular, amiable facade. Snowberry, he trailed, somewhere between conciliatory and hurt. Why am I sensing some hostility? He turned to Sero. What did you do to the lass while I wasn't looking, Tildren? Fished her out of the river after you nearly capsized us. Aside from that, he shrugged. I told you, Sero, no intimidating our new associate. I am going to have to reconsider how much. Leave him out of it, he didn't do anything wrong. Vera glared at the cup of tea in her lap, waiting for the sudden flare of anger to pass before speaking. Want to tell me how you two managed to escape the Forsworn, and with that sword? To boot, last night you looked like Skeeverhash, Dunmer. This morning you don't have a scratch. Sero here still looks like he had sat around patiently while someone pummeled him with. She was about to say pipes, but caught herself. Wrong analogy. Well, you tell me. Wasn't a weapon, or he'd be dead. Dunmer beamed. See, Tildren, I told you she was sharp. Now, you don't expect me to reveal all my secrets, do you, Snowberry? We haven't even shared mead yet, let alone gotten properly drunk together. How do I know I can trust you, He leaned forward, a sly, conspiratorial look on his features. Or is it the sorry state of my associate's face what has you fretting? He turned to the Dunmer. Hear that, sellsword? Your disreputable mug is pulling at our new partner's heartstrings, compassionate lass that she is. Maybe next time we'll trade places, eh? The Dunmer's expression remained inscrutable, save for a slight hitch to his lips. I doubt you would keep up, Nord, he drawled. Red eyes flicked to Vera, lingering on her a few seconds too long in open assessment. Ah, the things we do for the right price. The tea went down the wrong pipe, and Vera coughed spastically. Sero lifted his drink in silent salute and tapped his ring finger against the side of the mug. 3 points. Jerk. All the more so because he knew perfectly well she couldn't retaliate. Woe and misery, what is an old warrior to do? Dunmer wailed in a shoddy facsimile of unearthly torment. No beautiful Breton lass weeps over his broken countenance. No maidenly tears, limpid as dew, fall upon his brow in silent sorrow. Vera narrowed her eyes. Something about the diction, about the way he projected his voice, snagged on a memory. Her first night at the Silver Blood Inn, when she had any coin to spend, Ogmund had been declaiming something from the Poetic Edda. Had Dunmer been trained as an actor or a bard? It seemed increasingly likely, and then it suddenly clicked, and Vera quickly averted her gaze, hiding her expression. No, not an actor, a con man. Was more like it. Cut it out. She collected herself, trying to keep the treble of anxiety out of her voice. It didn't help that she had no ground to accuse the Nord of duplicity. Technically, he had followed their arrangement to the letter. Bringing the Forsworn down upon them and almost getting her killed could easily be written off as unforeseen circumstances. Accidents happen. Surely we'll do better next time, etc. I see that I have taken the wrong approach. Something about Dunmer shifted, resettling. His face, now devoid of his humorous mask, looked grave. There was an odd expression on him, like something that had fallen out of use. He is older than he appears, Vera thought suddenly. Can't say I blame you, lass. You can't buy trust with coin like a carrot from a vegetable peddler, huh? Very well. He puffed up before exhaling and tugged at his beard, momentarily lost in thought. "Let me begin at the beginning then, and after that, should you wish to leave my service, I'll drop the matter, as the divines are my witnesses." He rolled his shoulders, settling into the new role, solemn and pensive. Once upon a time, there was a young man, but this tale, like most tales about young men, is not really about him. For if you wish to get to the heart of such fables— He brought his hand to his chest and tapped his fist against the worn scales of his armor. "You must look for the woman." His diction shifted. The habits of casual speech dropped, his delivery rolling out deep and smooth, with the intonations of someone used to spellbinding crowds. A bard indeed, or perhaps a born bullshitter. The hero of our story, you must understand, was young and thereby foolish, and like many young fools, what he lacked in wisdom, he made up in hubris. And like thousands of fools before him, he found himself besotted with a maiden far above his station, as unreachable as the sun itself, and thrice as bright. For this maiden was no ordinary girl, and had our young lad followed his parents' advice, and settled for a comely merchant's daughter and fathered children with her, and led an unremarkable life of quiet contentment, he would have grown into a happy man indeed. But Dunmer raised his finger and waved it for effect. This young lad was as foolish as he was proud, and no matter how many lovely lasses Mara, in her benevolence, saw fit to send down his path, doe-eyed and fresh and crisp as lavender, his heart remained as cold to them as stone. Some say it was Debella who guided his eye, for it was the Jarl's future wife that our young man lusted after. Dunmer paused for effect, as well as to moisten his gullet with a sip of his tea. "Have I gotten your attention yet, Snowberry?" Vera cast a brief look at Sero. Poker face. No help there. She exhaled, squished her nascent curiosity like a cockroach, and set her jaw. "No." No? This time, the Nord didn't just sound surprised. He was veering towards outraged. "I'm sure it's a great story. Real tear-jerker. I suggest you save it for the tavern." Dunmer stared at Vera for a few heartbeats in what could only be described as horrified amazement, and then he roared with laughter, scaring a nearby flock of pine thrushes into scattered flight. "Do you hear that, Teldrin? What sort of creature have we unearthed? As lithe and beguiling as a Spriggan, as resourceful as Zenithar himself, and as heartless as a Daedroth." "I suppose 2 of these descriptions are accurate enough," Sero offered with studied indifference. But Vera caught his quick glance when the Nord occupied himself with inhaling the rest of the eggs, apparently to fortify himself against this unexpected turn of events. The Dunmer's expression was one part irritable amusement, one part something suspiciously close to grudging respect, and one part undisguised carnal interest. At least 2 of the 3 emotions, in Vera's estimation, hadn't been carefully rehearsed. "Look." Vera set her tea aside and interlaced her fingers in her lap. Keeping the Nord on the friendly side of the equation was wise, as long as he owed her money anyway. And so she swallowed back the harsher words rolling around on her tongue and forced a smile. "I am sure you have your reasons for doing what you do. Let me be straight with you as well. Whatever it is you're after, impressing the Jarl's wife into cuckolding her husband, or avenging her memory, or what have you, I'm sure there's going to be an adventurer out there somewhere ready and willing to lend a hand. That isn't me, though." She met his curious gaze. "You picked me for 3 reasons, as far as I can tell. First, you heard I was suited to the task. Second, you knew I needed the money. And third, most importantly, you knew that if I went missing, there'd be no serious repercussions. No family or social relations with enough coin to send hired goons after you to avenge my good name and so on. Why, I would never. I like you, Dunmer, but I don't like your methods. You're cavalier and you're pushy, From what I can tell, your strategy involves flying by the seat of your pants. We simply don't match in our approach. Whatever it is you're after, I'm not your gal. Nothing personal." Now, both the Nord and the Dunmer were staring at her with matching expressions of suspicious amazement. Unna recovered first. "Teldrin, I think I may be in love," he exclaimed with great and entirely fake pathos. "My condolences," Sero chuckled, but his eyes never left Vera. She ignored his interrogative stare and looked back at the Nord. "For no love potion is greater than merciless rejection," Unna amended, shaking an edifying finger. "Well, you'll have to get over it. I'm with you until Markarth. Then you will pay my fee, and I'll wish you the best of luck." Unna ruminated, his eyes aglow with speculation, and then another mask fell off, and all that remained was a keenly intelligent, calculating shrewdness. "Not so fast, lass. As an aside, you are quite the find. Here's how it's going to be." He leaned forward. "I made some inquiries about you. Due diligence, you know how that goes. Rumor has it you've been hounding that Altmer conjurer. What's his name? Count Chelmo, was it? Well..." He stretched and cast a forlorn look at the empty skillet, and then he plucked a head of garlic, peeled it with alarming efficiency, and started popping the cloves into his mouth, one after the other, crunching through them with visible relish. Vera stared in horror. Sero prudently relocated further away and quickly dug into his eggs before the insatiable Nord appropriated those too. "See, Snowberry, I am what one might call a bit of a collector. Widely known in narrow circles and all that. About 3 months ago, I received a letter from a fellow out of Markarth named Calselmo, looking for a certain dwarven artifact, which just so happens to be in my ownership. Bit of a collector himself, I'm given to understand. Now, as a collector, I can tell you that parting with a prized possession isn't something that we, collectors, are eager to do, but for the right reasons. Say, to help a friend in need get an in with a reputedly difficult and ill-tempered mage. You're a smart lass, Snowberry. You see where this is going, don't you?" Oh, but she was in so much shit, because now she had no doubt that as soon as she brushed aside the offered carrot, the stick would loom into view. Suddenly, her little game with the Dunmer acquired a whole new set of stakes. "What's on the other side of the coin, Unnar? Suspicious creature, aren't you? Realistic." He smiled his chipped grin, nodded at her question, and leaned forward. "Let me tell you a little secret, Snowberry, since we're all becoming fast friends, yes? I am what we might call a real traditional Nord. See, the other side of the coin is that you have been consorting with what is otherwise known as a devoted follower of mighty Talos. I wonder if our Thalmor friend might find that information interesting." He crunched through the last of the garlic, and before you get any ideas about anonymously drafted reports, the difference is that I have the means to leverage myself out of oblivion itself, should the need arise. But you... He motioned with his hands and arranged his face into an approximation of commiseration. "As you said, no family and no social relations." Vera glanced at the Dunmer. He was carefully avoiding her gaze, staring intently into the fire, his expression grim. "Why the long face, Snowberry? Don't you worry one bit. As Talos is my witness, I never betray my friends. As long as they stay my friends, that is. No, I think this little arrangement will benefit all of us. I'll help you with the Dwemer-obsessed mage and line your pockets with more gold than you can throw away on that struggling little apothecary where you've been hiding. Everyone wins. As long as I dance to your tune," Vera clarified, the icy crawl of terror slowly curdling into cold rage. She kept her face neutral and her voice steady. "Now, did you have to be so crass about it?" He squinted, the jovial jester expression firmly back on. "Wait, do you dance too?" He turned to Sero. Hear that, sellsword? She really is a treasure. Never could pass one up for as long as I've known you, yes, the Dunmer commented acerbically and got up. Now that this is over with, what's our next move?